be careful when you date a Filipina, she might rip you off. This is a very common story we have heard thousands of times now, watching millions of different YouTube videos, and this is also what I have believed in my very earlier years when traveling to the Philippines, dating Filipinas. And today I want to talk about this topic, but don't run away, stick around, because I do not just want to repeat these old boring stories about how Filipinos struggle with money and how they ask you for money. Oh, can you help me out with $100, or can I borrow some money, or my grandmother is sick. No, I don't want to bore you with these stories, although they happen to me also. I want to really go to the bottom of this matter, because it is not only black and white as it seems to many newbies in the Philippines. I really wanted and want to understand Filipino culture and not just blame these girls, because this is an easy thing to do, right? Just to blame these girls or these guys, these Filipinos. Yeah, it's not only the women, it's also the men. And this is, I think, just also kind of normal. We are foreigners, we are traveled to a completely different culture, we experience different things there, and then we jump into conclusions. I think this is just normal human behavior. So although I actually, in the very beginning, I never had any reason to believe that Filipinos are greedy or money-oriented or scammers or gold diggers. No, not at all. As you might know, I have released a video last year about how I met my very first Filipina girlfriend. And I remember her, besides that she was a very cute and sweet, beautiful looking young woman, she actually paid for me. Yeah. I told a story in another video. She bought me birthday gifts. She paid for my hotel when I arrived the first time in the Philippines, when I visited her. So she was paying me. So only later then, I encountered different women. But anyway, in the first place, I had no reason at all to believe or to blame these bad Filipinas. Not at all. By the way, if you are not shocked by now by this introduction of my video, and you are really interested to meet Filipinas, and you say, yeah, I like them also, and they are cute and pretty, where can I find them? A great place to find Filipinas is Christian Filipina, which is a dating service in the Philippines. They are operating already for 16 years now. They are award-winning, very friendly, conservative, and, as I find, trustworthy. Christian Filipina is a very easy and safe way to meet women. So if you want to give it a try, the link is in the description. Check it out. So to come back to the main topic today, as I mentioned before, you cannot really blame the Filipinos, but you can also not really blame the Western guys, who arrive in the Philippines for the first time. But one main reason and contributor to this big misunderstanding and blaming and judging of these Filipinas is also ignorance, Western ignorance. Of course, we don't know better. We travel to the Philippines, but the big mistake is what we make, and I've been also doing, is to underestimate cultural influences. And what I will talk about in this video and is about the different culture. And I think many of us do not really appreciate the how severe that really is. When I say or mean cultural difference, what does it really mean? We just think, oh yeah, okay, here in in the United States or in Europe, we do things this way and we eat that kind of food and we pay with this kind of money. And then we travel to the Philippines. Oh yeah, it's a little bit hotter there. And they eat different food and they pay with peso, and then maybe the roads are not so well maintained. But this is not what I'm talking about, you know. And this is the biggest problem also, why many guys just stick with their conclusions and their judgments, their bad judgments. Yeah, not bad in a sense that they say they are bad women. Their entire judgment is flawed and bad because they do not understand that they are in a different culture and that they do not understand the structure of the culture, and that there are really things we will never understand in the Philippines or in Vietnam or in Thailand. Yeah? There is really like I mentioned already, it goes way deeper when I say cultural difference, okay? It's almost like a different universe. It's really almost like you would travel to a different planet. There are structural differences also, economic differences and reasons, of course, also. It has to do with the history of the Philippines. And of course, all these contributors and factors, they became part of their unconscious behavior. So I don't want to excuse these girls here. This is not the reason of this video. I just want to also, by talking about it, I want to understand. I want to understand them a little bit better to then deal with this issue better in the future. This is the reason of my videos. The biggest problem, I think, is that we as Western guys are really not able to put ourselves in their shoes. This is my claim. As much as we think we are able to do it, we are not. And we will never. This is what we have to understand. This is what I more and more realize, that I will never ever be able to put myself in a Filipino or Filipina shoe. It's never going to happen because I am just too different. I'm coming from a Western cultural background, and how I have been shaped and influenced goes so way deeper than I can even fathom and imagine. Yeah? This is what I want to talk about here today, and this is what I want to stress also, okay? It's really not only culture, but culture includes also the way of thinking, how people think, the way they think and feel about many different things in their lives. I remember a comment a buddy of mine made a few years ago. He is married to a Filipina already for over 20 years. He lives in the Philippines, and he told me, you know, Marcel, after being married to my Filipina wife, happily married, of course, more than 20 years now, I still do not understand her sometimes. And I guess, and I'm afraid, I will never figure her out. And he's not talking about this man-woman thing, you know, this man-woman dynamic, like we will never understand women or women will never understand men. He was explicitly referring to this Filipino culture thing, where he told me, I sometimes struggle after 20 years of marriage to figure out my wife. I have no bloody clue why is she now behaving that way, you know? So it's like a black box still. So even these guys admit that, and they learned that. So imagine you are a newbie to the Philippines, or just a tourist, or just come over just every 6 months and spend 4 weeks, you know. Although I want to say that, of course, it's true that you have gold diggers and scammers and fishy girls in the Philippines, like you have in the United States or in Germany or in Italy or France. And you know better if you're American that I don't need to mention all these bad stories coming out of America. You know, it seems to me that actually these Western women, or especially these American women, from what I hear, they're even worse than all these Filipinas combined. So, you know, this thing, the Filipinos are just after money and they are just greedy. It doesn't cut it anymore, in my opinion. So this is one thing. So the next thing is, in the Philippines, cash is king. This is just as it is, especially in the Philippines when you have to look at the economics. There is no social security system in the Philippines. This is, again, another thing we Westerners, we don't really understand, and we are not used to this, because we are coming from I'm from Germany. Germany has one of the best social security systems in the world. When I lose my job in Germany, I get paid money I'm covered by unemployment insurance. I am covered with mandatory health insurance. There are so many, there's a social security system in place, you know. It's one of the most famous, some people also say infamous, but for most of the Germans, one of the best social security system in the world. And even in America, you have actually very well functioning social security system. This is our background. This is how we grew up. This is what we know. But in the Philippines, they don't have that. And this is what we will never really comprehend and understand. So by not having this social security system, for example, which is only one aspect of this whole matter, these people automatically need to tick differently, need to think differently, need to find different strategies already to make their way around, to make ends meet. And they integrate this into their, it becomes a part of their survival strategy. They integrate this behavior. It's an ego investment, so to speak. It's all about survival in the Philippines, way more than in Western countries. Then another very big thing I also want to mention is the concept of collective responsibility. I was talking about this in one of my videos. I think I released at the beginning of this year. This is also what many Westerners not understand. It's the concept of collective responsibility. This is one thing where many Western guys still struggle today. It's basically the thing when they say, oh, you marry a Filipina, you marry the whole family, disaster. And I do not want to deny that these Western guys are experiencing these demands and financial expectations and this and that. This is all happening, and I experienced this as well. Again, I don't want to excuse these Filipinos or Filipinas. I just want to understand, why is this? Why is this that you suddenly claim that when you marry a Filipina, you marry the whole family? At least it feels like it, right? There must be some truth to it. But why is that? This is what I want to talk about today. So now, this is one of the core issues where Westerners are completely ignorant about when it comes to the Philippines, Filipino culture, and dating Filipinas, because this is one major cultural difference I am speaking about, which in Germany we don't have, maybe had 150 years ago. But the concept of collective responsibilities, and this concept characterizes the Filipino family. This is basically what it is that the better off member takes care of not only the close relatives but also extended members of the family. This is like an unwritten law in Filipino culture. That means if you are a doctor, for example, or a lawyer in the Philippines and you earn very good money, you are basically doomed to be the provider, not only to your wife or to your children, but also to your aunties, nephews, extended family. And you know, Filipino families are quite big. So it's completely, some people say it's a reasonable concept, but many Filipinos also say it's an unreasonable concept. But that's the way it was already for thousands of years. This is also what we need to understand. It's not just recent, since independence. No, it has been in place forever, for ages. Yeah. So this is like it is. A poor relative will ask the well-off guy for money. Yeah. And I can tell you, also Filipinos and Filipinas are annoyed by this. They don't like it that relatives are asking for money. I know there are guys out there who are married to Filipinas and who have to set strong boundaries. And also Filipinas complain, especially the overseas Filipino workers. Most of them are women. They can tell you horror stories about how their relatives, don't work and just rely on their daughter who is earning money overseas. So many Filipinos also are annoyed by this collective responsibility. But here is the big issue, the big problem for these Filipinos and Filipinas. They cannot reject these requests for money. Why? Because gossip would immediately start, and gossip would start, and then people would say, this my uncle, he is very stingy and he is tight-fisted, he don't want to support me. And one of the, if not the worst fear of any Filipino and Filipina in the Philippines is if you are seen as a bad relative. There you go. It's all about losing face. And since the Philippines or the Filipino people are in generally very, very family oriented, family comes first. So this is the whole story. This concept of collective responsibility is so deeply ingrained in Filipino culture. You will never eliminate this. It has been in place forever, for ages, for thousands of years. And when you look at it from a different perspective, it's a great survival strategy, because family comes first. Family is a bond. You need that to survive, to protect your relatives, and then to have enough food and to survive. It just makes sense. This concept actually is great. But it also leads, it leads to people becoming a little bit lazy, doing nothing, don't work, just rely on their rich uncle, Or, in your case, if you happen to marry a Filipina, now you are the rich guy suddenly, the wealthy guy. I'm going to talk about this in a minute here, how foreigners are being perceived in the Philippines, because this is another reason. Yeah. So now you become the wealthy guy, and then the same dynamics start to play out. The family will come to you. I'm sure you experienced that, not only your wife, not only your children, for whom you care anyway, but cousins are showing up, brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles, parents, grandparents. Suddenly they all knock on your door and want money, right? And you say, these Filipinos are just lazy and greedy and they just want money. Yeah, technically yes, but again, my video is not to excuse these Filipinos or Filipinas. I want to understand why that is. These people are not even consciously aware why they're doing it, So that's culture. This is how deep culture really can go. This is all about psychology. So when you are in a power position in the Philippines, power meaning if you have money, if you have wealth, considerably wealth, then you are in this position to needing to care for your also extensive family members. And so more power or money you have, so more as it is expected from you to help and assist. And there is no way around. You like it or you hate it. Again, many Filipinos also, they hate this. But why don't you just stop it? No, I mentioned it already. One of the worst fears is to be seen as a bad, not helping relative. This is the worst thing you can be in the Philippines. Family is first. And for these Filipinas, it is also their obligation to financially support their parents. This is another thing many Western guys get wrong, including me before, because I can tell you in my culture, in German culture, today, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and even today, my mom is 72 years old now. And I don't need to support her financially. She is healthy, thank God, she is strong. She earns money, she receives money from the government, her retirement fund. She receives social security every month. But she also has savings, she is pretty well off basically. She does not lack anything. And so there is no need for me to support her financially. And there is no obligation to do that. But also in German culture, when I think of my friends or other people in Germany, no one is really financially supporting their parents because the parents are pretty much well off. They're not rich or super wealthy, but they can make ends meet. And there is, in our German culture, there is no obligation to financially support our parents. Yeah? This is the thing in the Philippines. I mean, these are two different things, just helping your parents with some money, or there's culturally an obligation in place, or it's culturally expected that you are obligated to support your parents financially. And this is the case in the Philippines. It's not the case in the States or in Canada or in Western countries. But in the Philippines, Filipino children are obligated to financially support their parents. This is one very important thing to understand. And this is then sometimes when it happens, when Filipinas then ask you for money. Because, very good example, you hook up with one Filipina, you even say, okay baby, you know what, I want to travel with you for like 2 or 3 weeks, but you're working a job, so how are we gonna do this? You know what, you resign from your job and I pay your salary. But maybe you don't pay her salary, the money she is not making when she is not working. You travel with her to all these nice places and resorts and beaches, and you're having a great time, and you think your girl also has a great time. I don't think so, because the only thing she thinks about is how to give money to her parents, how to earn money, because now she is not working because she is with you, and she is not so much enjoying her holidays. Trust me, she's just thinking about how to send money, how to help her parents. Why? Because it's her obligation. It's her obligation. This is what Western men do not understand, and maybe never will understand. But in Filipino culture, it is an obligation for the girl and also for the boys. And so then it might happen that she will ask you for some money, and you will say, oh, why are you asking me for money? Get the hell out of here. I mean, you have all right to do that, but it's really superficial. You don't even know the backstory and the background and anything, right? So it's, it's very pity. It's a pity. And also in the Philippines, another contributing factor, I think, is the corruption, which is not only in place since recently. Corruption was always a problem in the Philippines, even during the American let's say occupation, okay, and especially shortly after independence in 1946. Since then, the Philippines always has struggled with corruption. I think that has something to do with the culture, with the history, the role the Spaniards played also and formed and influenced the Filipino psyche, and how the Filipino people were treated during these 300-400 years of Spanish rule, and also during the American rule. I mean, the early years of the American rule were horrible. The Filipino-American War, many atrocities happened. So later on it became a better relationship. But this also contributed and influenced the Filipino psyche, and we don't want to talk about the Filipino politicians. I mean, you have corruption in any country, but the Filipino politicians are very, especially famous for being corrupt. And, if we have people like Imelda Marcos, for example, which is still alive, I guess, today, and the way she lived. And on the other hand, you have millions of Filipino people who are suffering from poverty. But still, Imelda Marcos is highly popular in the Philippines. How come? I don't understand that, But this is the culture in the Philippines, Even every Filipino knows that Imelda Marcos is a highly corrupt person, and her husband was even worse. Somehow she is functioning as a role model subconsciously or so. And when politicians behave this way for many, many decades, then also, Filipinos somehow, they copied that behavior. Monkey say, monkey do, They ape that behavior and they think, oh, they do it, so it's just okay, we all do it. This also, in my opinion, plays a role, this bad role model playing there by these politicians for decades now, okay? Now, lastly, I want to cover the perception of Filipino people of foreigners. How do Filipinas perceive us as Western foreigners? I think it comes to no surprise that many of the Filipinas and Filipinos still think that Western guys by default are rich and wealthy. This is just what my Indonesian girlfriend, I have an Indonesian girlfriend, just told me yesterday. She told me this story because Indonesians and Filipinos are very, very similar in many regards. That's why I share this story here. But my Indonesian girlfriend told me yesterday, she remembered very well when she was a teenager and she saw white foreigners the first time coming to Indonesia, these tourists. And she told me, she observed these foreigners, she watched them, what they're doing and stuff. And she saw, these foreigners, these tourists, they always stay in the hotel, they go eat into the restaurants, So she also confirmed yesterday, she thought foreigners are just rich. Can't help it. And it's the same with the Philippines, Filipino culture is also a host pay culture, where the host pays the bill, and Western guys are seen as rich guys, wealthy, yes, and probably also there must be businessmen and stuff like that. So, and when you invite your Filipina to a meal or to this and that, then Filipinas also think, okay, you are the host, you pay anyway, okay? So this has also something to do with Filipino culture, in my opinion. This host pay culture. Then there's a different work ethic in the Philippines, a completely different work ethic than in Western countries. This is also what many people don't understand. This is how deep culture really goes. And it has to do with the history, the climate. I remember my boss many, many years ago explained that to me, that because he traveled to the Philippines at the time already, and I asked him, so how is the Philippines, can I go? They say, yeah, it's a great place, great girls and stuff. And he explained to me, Marcel, we from Germany, we have 4 seasons, we have to plan out for the year so that we don't suffer hunger. But a Filipino, it's hot all year round, 30 degrees, he can just basically live out of the hammock, or lie in the hammock all day and just cut some coconuts. So a little bit exaggerating here, but this is basically the thing. So we Westerners, Germany again, Europe, we have 4 seasons, So winter time is the toughest time. We need to plan, we need to foresee, we need to manage properly, we need to manage our resources. We cannot just wake up and think what I'm going to do today or what I'm not going to do today. What do I feel like doing? No, you have to cut the wood already in the summertime for the winter time. That you have enough wood for firing your oven, for example, things like that. So automatically, we Europeans, we had to develop a different work ethic. We had to come up with these planning skills and organizational skills. We didn't come up with these skills just because we're superior. No, we had to. We were forced by our circumstances, by the nature, by the four seasons, And one thing also in the Philippines, many Filipinos also admit that they lack money management skills. This is also, and many now say, yeah, that's no secret. Yeah, exactly, they lack money management skills. But why is that? I want to know why. That has to do with their psyche, their psychology, the mind, the way they think, shaped by their environment and environmental demands, The life is not so tough in the Philippines, let's say like in Europe with 4 seasons, At least it seems to be like that. It is still tough. People need to eat, they need to plant the rice, it's tough work, but it's different. There are different demands on the Filipino people, or there used to be different demands. These demands shape their way of thinking and doing things and looking at things, This is what I want to say. Filipinos plan differently, not like us. We Westerners are very structured, organized. This is again due to our circumstances and what kind of environment we basically evolved and grew up for thousands of years there in Europe, in Northern Europe. And therefore in the Philippines it's a little bit more like easy come, easy go, c'est la vie, money comes in and then money goes out right away, Filipinos also have this celebration mentality, whenever I know they have maybe a small windfall, then there is a celebration to be made, or Filipinos in general, just their culture, they celebrate any little thing, big celebration, and celebration costs money. Again, this is a cultural thing, which we maybe never understand, because we don't have that in Europe. Just a celebration mentality. And Filipinos are they like to smile, to laugh, to dance, to sing. They're very, very bubbly and outgoing, And there's also this keeping up with the Joneses mentality. You also have that in the Philippines. It's called budol, the budol mentality. So what you basically have also in other countries. And we Westerners, we are more strategic, more planning, and Filipino culture is more about Filipino psychology is more about, Filipino mindset is it's more immediate, more spontaneous, more coming from, maybe also from the emotions. Coming back to my Indonesian girlfriend, she also explained it to me that Indonesian people, they do not think past tomorrow 12 noon. And I asked her, what do you mean? Does it mean that you don't really worry about what is happening past noon tomorrow? She said, yes, this is our mentality in Indonesia. This is very similar to the Philippines. This is something I really struggle with, because my mindset is completely different. I cannot just live and think until tomorrow. I want to know what's happening next week and the month after, and maybe I'm planning out, I'm planning out at least 6 months, for example, okay? I can't help it. I'm very structured guy. I'm planning things out. I'm an organized guy. As a chef anyway, you have to be very organized, So this is again one crucial, major, big difference between the Western mindset and the Filipino mindset. That all has to do with this money thing in the Philippines, in my opinion. Then you have a very prevalent debt culture in the Philippines, asking relatives, friends for money. This is rather the norm than the exception. This is again a cultural thing which we will never understand, because in our culture, we also borrow money when we need it sometimes, No question about this. Everybody of us has borrowed probably some money from friends or relatives, and we paid it back. But this is the exception in our culture. It's the exception. I'm talking about private borrowing, from friends or relatives, not borrowing money from the bank to buy a car or a house. We all done this, but this is rather the exception, right? But in the Philippines, borrowing is the norm. It's rather the norm. It's the opposite around. It's just the opposite around, exactly, the other way around. So this is their mindset. It's just like they, instead of saving and planning and foreseeing, they just borrow. So they have a problem is coming up, there's a financial issue coming up. Instead of having foreseen that with some, let's say, good planning, they just say, they don't worry about this, They don't worry about next day past noontime, basically. And if things happen, they happen. It's just God's will, maybe, and then we're gonna deal with it when it's happening, And if something is happening, the motorbike breaks. My motorbike is broken. Oh shit, I don't have any money. Okay, I'm gonna ask my rich uncle, who is a lawyer or a doctor, and I just borrow money. This is also a big difference to Western culture, that culture, just borrowing money if there is a financial issue. Because they probably know that there's always somebody around who will give money, and then they never pay the money back. This is the problem in the Philippines, and I think many Westerners can relate who are dealing with Filipinos. They say, yeah, you're right. Yeah, they borrow money, but they never pay me back. Now, there you go. Now you know why that is. Not because they are bad people. It's their culture. It's just their culture. I don't want to excuse this culture here. I also would find it very annoying. Probably because in our Western culture, we handle things differently, right? We rather save. We know if I buy a motorbike today, I have to assume, I have to anticipate that something will break in the future, so I put some money aside. This is just for me so logical. I cannot think of any other way. Any other way would be like stupid almost for me. For me, this is so normal to set money to the side for an accident or incident to happen, so I can then pay the mechanics who fix my motorbike. But in the Philippines, it's exactly the opposite. Just things just happen, and when they happen, okay, I'm gonna deal with it then. Oh, don't you worry that your motorbike will break down? Don't you wanna save some money? Oh, no. So this kind of mentality. So this is just how it is. I read a statistic. Also the other day, where 55% of the participants in this survey said or claimed that they do not have enough money to cover their basic needs, food and other stuff in the Philippines. This is rather a very high number. And in the Philippine culture, you also have you use spending to maintain relationships, okay? So this is another cultural thing which is probably not so prevalent in Western countries. So, with that being said, I'm almost done here with this long video today, which required some time, but I wanted to dive a little bit more deeper here into Filipino culture and try to also explain to you why things are the way they are in the Philippines. And it is not only because Filipinos are greedy by nature or dishonest by nature or deceiving by nature. They are not. It might be that it feels like a little bit over proportional in the Philippines than compared to other Southeast Asian countries. I would agree, but that's not the point today. I wanted to find out why that is, why these Filipinos behave this way. And many Westerners also say, the Filipinos, I don't go to the Philippines because Filipinos only want money. This is a very basic, common stereotype and judgment, and there is something to it, but But I wanted to outline today for you why that might be the case, because I believe true understanding really helps and is more helpful than just blaming and shouting and just putting these Filipinas or Filipinos in one box, you know, and think badly about them. As bad, maybe this is what they are doing. But maybe many of them don't even know why they're behaving this way. Also, I'm pretty sure they are not bad people, you know. So this was the purpose of this video today. I hope it could enlighten you a little bit here. And you see, there are many different things who come together. Many of them are really cultural things, the collective responsibility, the debt culture in the Philippines, and then also, yeah, the different environment, you know, different seasons, culture, the history, the cultural history. So I hope you understand a little bit better now, and hope you, because I believe if you understand better, if we are all understanding better, then we are able to make better choices. And now it's up to you. You understand hopefully a little bit better, are a little bit more compassionate also, not just pointing fingers and relieving your frustration, as frustrating as it might be. So you are a little bit more understanding now, you're a little bit wiser and smarter, and you can make now better choices. And when you still believe now that dating or meeting a Filipina is the right choice, is a great choice, and you want to date one, you want to meet one, then please check out the link in the description. Christian Filipina is the dating service to go if you want to find a beautiful and gorgeous Filipina. So with that being said, I'm checking out for today. Thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for watching. And looking forward to your comments. And then I'm gonna see you in one of my next videos. Take care. Bye bye.